Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Game On, a podcast brought to you by Bay Hackle Sports. Don't adjust your monitor or anything. We have a couple lights out in the studio.
Yeah.
A little dark, but it's more important what we say than how we look. Can't see my balding or receding hairline or anything like that. So we are done with high school basketball.
Yep.
But let me tell you what. There were some exciting games. They played the semis and the finals at Wake Forest. And some great basketball action. It was awesome.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good action. I mean, you start off even just beforehand, you had
The semis.
You had semifinals. You had Hunter Huss, North Lincoln. You had Stuart Kramer. You had, a couple of different schools going up. And then you had, of course, you had North Mech and you had Chambers. I mean, that was a ridiculous game that was back and forth.
That game just, North Mech their defense was insane. The way they shut down Chambers in terms of inside the paint was really impressive. So it was a great game for North Mech, and great season for Chambers.
Yeah.
To do what they did.
Same with Hunter Huss, upsetting a bunch of teams to get to where they needed to. North Lincoln with the girls getting as far as they could, and then losing out in that one, but still going up, against Stuart Kramer.
Right.
And Stuart Kramer ended, going to the state finals as well. Then you had Corvin Community as well, and even Bandy's getting that far as a 15 seed to get that far down into the tournament.
Right.
And hold their own against a really good team in Reedsville. There was just a lot of action just for North Carolina, just in the semifinals.
Right.
And that wasn't even counting the state finals.
Right.
We hadn't even gotten to the finals yet.
Yeah, the finals were, I was there both, Friday and Saturday, and it was. You want to talk about madness?
Yeah.
There were great moments. We start with Corvian Community, who just had a great season as it was, but they went back to the title game. The year before they had lost on a buzzer beater.
Yep.
So they came in with that. I know. Back in their, that had to be in the back of their mind.
And then not only that, then a lot of those guys are on the football team too.
Right.
And they lose the state championship for football.
Right. And all so close. Back and forth game on that day. But R.J. Moore for Corvian.
Sophomore was just ridiculous.
Sophomore. So he was 5 of 7 in that game. He ended up with 26 points in the championship game.
And he had 29 in the semifinal, if I'm not mistaken.
So championship 5 of 7 from three-pointer, including the game winner in overtime. Less than 10 seconds to go, and he just, ice in the veins, pulls up and hits the three. In overtime?
Wow.
Yeah, it was in overtime. And actually, and they got the ball back with about 15 seconds to go, all tied up, and and he had the chance to win it on the three, and calmly and coolly just drained it, and afterwards, you could see it in their press conference after the game for the coach, for the players, just what it meant for them. So just to take the experience from last year and turn it around, and that was, and the coach even said, "Hey, we thought we had last year in the bag, but the other team came back, So actually, Corvian Community, let me be honest with you, they were down 6, with like a minute to go in regulation." So to come back, tie it, and send it to overtime. So he knew it was just a complete role reversal from the year before.
Yeah.
So that was great. Then you get Stuart Kramer, who had a great year. They were taking on Western Alamance and for the 3A. And this one, it was 75-58. So Stuart Kramer losing that one. But it might have been the game of the tournament or the game of the postseason. I don't know. Young lady, Oshana Holland, 49 of the 58 points.
That's insane.
49 of the 50. So if you look at the box score, it was 49, 2, 2, 2, and 3.
I mean, if you have a hot night, you should just don't keep feeding her the ball.
And it just was. They knew it.
Yeah.
I mean, the other team knew it. They couldn't stop her.
That's wild.
And I think even her teammates were like, go.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times you're thinking, are you a ball hog? Are you like going for things? And they're like, no, we're just going. And that's exactly what they did. And she was just, when you get a hot hand like that, you go.
Why not?
And it was so funny because I was like, when we were in the press conference too. And even though they lost, they were very proud of what they had done. And, I just wanted to say, I wanted my phone to ring.
Yeah.
During that, and I could just go, Oshana, that's Dawn Staley on line 1. she's got a couple of offers, I think, already. But yeah, Dawn, if you're listening to our podcast, we got somebody for you because I think she would fit South Carolina style perfectly. But just it was a great game.
And then you had, of course, you still keep going on. There was the doubleheader. Mandy's didn't make it through to Reedsville,
right?
So nothing in 2A. Try as they might. And then you have the 4A though, Lake Norman girls coming and clawing back. And really, I mean, they had been down a bunch of games all season long.
Right.
They had been down, including, in their game, in their semifinal, and they come back, they dominate, and then they were down in the final game too.
Right. Yeah. So, well, they were down, but so back up a lot of things. They were in the finals 2 years ago.
Yep.
So in this team, there were 7 seniors who had been sophomores on that team.
Yeah.
So they knew what was going on. Lake Norman was down. But then they came back, kind of took the lead, but then Wakefield was down 6 with a minute to go and hit 2 threes to tie it up. So then, Lake Norman got the ball much like Corbion, but this was not in overtime. 20 seconds to go. Alexis Sheehan, who just had a great game for Lake Norman, in the middle.
Great season.
Great season all the way around. They ran it to perfection. They kind of ran a pick and roll or something or whatever, and Sheehan found Rayana Menard under the basket for a layup, and basically there's a layup as the buzzer goes off, and they win 43-41 for their first state title. So I know it meant the world to them, and I talked to the coach after the game, not in the press conference, but kind of just off to the side a little bit, and asked him, with everything that's gone down, and how nice is it to be able to take that back to Lake Norman? It felt good.
I can imagine it had to have. I mean, just for that whole community, they should have and could have had, the chance to go, shot for shot, get the guys team and the girls team in there, with chances both of them win state. They both had early exits last year in the playoffs,
right?
So they were fighting back for it now. A lot of doubters, even Lake Norman getting the 2 seed for the girls at the time and taking down, going back and forth and trying to get ahead and getting that over McDowell and then getting into Wakefield too. That was huge. Both big games for them.
Right.
So I know that they definitely enjoyed that. And then of course the biggest game and the one that was not that much of a shock, maybe just in terms of how little talent drop off they had, was North Mech from this year to last.
Yeah, and before we go any further too, kudos to all the fans.
Yeah.
Who showed up. There might have been 8,000 to 10,000 people every day.
Yeah.
For every game.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the one school, and I apologize. The girls playing for the 2A.
It was probably the ones that they'd come the day before, because they packed that stadium too. Was it a black and red team, I want to say? Maybe.
It might have been, but they might have had 10,000 fans there, period.
They
had towels.
I feel like I remember
I apologize. I should figure it out, but my apologies.
It's not our DMA.
But it was, they packed it. And the energy was electric.
Yeah.
And so kudos, to the NCHSAA. They did a great job. They put on a great show. But yeah, so North Mech, New Hanover, repeat of last year. So New Hanover came in going, hey, we're going to,
There's no Isaiah Evans.
Right. We can rock this out. So New Hanover started on a 16-0 run.
Wow.
It was 16-0 before you could even blink an eye. And North Mech couldn't hit anything. And actually, it was North Mech was down 10 at the break.
Wow.
And it kind of went back and forth a little bit, but in the third quarter, I guess there was some talk in the locker room, because they made some adjustments. In the third quarter, I'm pretty sure New Hanover only scored like 8.
Wow.
It was crazy. As a matter of fact, I want to say, and I might be wrong, they scored more in the first quarter than they did in the final 3, if that makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. But long story short, they really started to pick up the defensive pressure.
Yeah.
And then Carson, well, they didn't, Isaiah, Evans, and there was another person who graduated. Mm-hmm. But Carson Evans and Chadlin Traylor, they had 46 between them.
And Traylor, if anyone doesn't know, Traylor has been, I think he's had 3 state championships in his 4 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And Traylor had complications at birth, had to have, I want to say, and I might be downplaying the number, 8 brain surgeries.
Really? Okay.
8 brain surgeries
Wow.
as a child.
Wow.
And I might be down at least that many. And he's got, you can see it's visible on the back of his neck.
Yep.
And that's just scar tissue from when he was a child. And now to like the complications at birth, not being able to do the things he thought he was going to be able to do. 3 state championships in 4 years
Right.
for those seniors
Right.
and for him specifically is unbelievable. And the way that they just dominated all postseason. It wasn't even a question whether we all wish we could have seen the Lake Norman North Met game, what
Right.
that would have looked like. But even against Watauga, again, they beat Watauga by 30 in the quarterfinals. They beat Chambers for the who they had only lost to who they had lost to in the conference
Right,
tournament.
exactly.
But they played the 4th time playing them. And then to take on and beat New Hanover 2 years in a row,
Right.
It just was, it was dominant for North Mech, and then that segues into we can go back to it if we want to, but just to how dominant North Mech basketball has been. We saw Isaiah Evans, show out in front of the home crowd.
Listen,
in the first game,
And Thursday night against Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
I mean, Georgia Tech makes a run. Cooper Flagg goes down.
yeah,
Duke has no energy.
yeah,
Duke fans are quiet in the Spectrum
Yeah.
Center. Isaiah Evans hits a 3.
yeah,
Gets people a little fired. Hits another one.
yeah,
Scores a life, and the place. Then
Yeah.
there was just when Isaiah Evans entered the game for Duke,
yeah.
everything switched.
100%. And then the day
And it was crazy.
The day before that, Georgia Tech was scared by North Mech all week long. Chapel Hill playing Georgia Tech. Jalen Withers has the record number for Chapel Hill for 3-pointers made in a tournament game. He had
Right.
7 3-pointers.
Right.
And he had 5 in the first half.
What year is he?
Jalen Withers is a graduating senior.
Okay.
So he wouldn't have been on either of these teams. He transferred in from Louisville, I want to say. So he wouldn't have played with Isaiah Evans, I don't believe.
Was Jalen the one who had the lane
Okay.
violation? Well, no. But here's
was.
what.
He was.
Well, I get. But do you go back and watch the way that guy shot his free throws?
It was very.
He almost stops like it's kind of wild.
There's a little bit of speculation about some baiting and switching, trying to get them off their mark. And you can say what you will about it. It was, a horrible move. They're in the tournament anyway, and
I'm happy for whether they deserve to be there or not.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him
that didn't
because
ruin
that
their
didn't
year.
that didn't end his
And
college career.
Whether they beat Duke in that game or not, they wouldn't have been much higher than the seeding that they were.
Oh, agreed.
And it's only because
Agreed.
that seed now is a part of the first 4
Right.
that they're even in the situation that they're in.
And some people could argue, like, are those for the playing games?
Yeah.
Are you really a part of the tournament, or now is it? Like you could even look at those games as you're playing a chance to get into the tournament.
If you're one of the 16 seeds that are in it, yes.
Yes, right.
If you're not and you're like Chapel Hill, I'd say you are.
Right.
Because, it just kind of changed the way they did it.
Sure,
But-
but I'm glad that they got in.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for him that that's not the way his career ended.
Yes.
Or the way people will remember him.
Yes.
Because like you said, he lit it up.
Yes.
and
And
hitting
the
those
fact that they were
threes.
in that game the way that they were without Cooper Flagg, because then you saw them go against Louisville and still without Cooper Flagg,
Right.
and run Louisville under the table.
yeah.
They're the best roster right now in basketball.
Right.
There's a reason. So the fact that they were even in that position to begin with, whether you beat them or not, is something to hold your hat. And it's honest, like that's why they got into the tournament. Was because if they got blown out against Duke and lost, they're not going to be in the
Right,
tournament.
sure.
But you have that game, so you can talk about that. But that's where they came into.
Right.
And that's we talk about North Carolina players in the tournament. There's quite a few to watch for. So if you have something you want to root for, I'll just roll through some of the lists here. Our great friends over at High School OT compiling this for everybody, not for us. But we're going
Right.
to take a little bit of usage from it. Just so thank you guys over there. You've got from North Carolina, of course, like we said, Jalen Withers. You've also got Cade Tyson, who played some time at Piedmont and Carmel Christian.
Right.
You've got Russell Hawkins from Mallard Creek and John Holbrook from Hickory. Then you go through, keep going down the line a little bit. Florida, you got Micah Handlington from Southlake Christian.
Yep.
You've got Noah Ross, who was at Middle Creek and Trinity. You've got Shane Anthony from Crossroads Christian. Makai Maber from Gaston Christian. You've got, you keep going down here a little bit. Caleb Foster on Duke from Hickory Ridge, playing
Yep.
alongside Isaiah Evans, of course, from North Mech. Baylor has Davidson Hubbard, who played at Audrey Kell, on their roster. Vanderbilt has Graham Colton from Charlotte Latin. Then you see another North Met grad in Robert Morris. That's Chris Ford, number 23. And then Mario Hansen from Chambers on that Robert Morris squad. You go down, Clemson's got number 14, Christian Reeves from
Right.
Cannon. You've got High Point has Trey Benham from Concord Academy. Then you keep going down the line. You've got Xavier has Trey Green. He played at Chambers. He played at Lake Norman Christian before going out of town. Tennessee has Bishop Boswell, number 3. He played for South Meck and Myers Park.
Yeah, 2.
And then also Darlinstone Dubar, who played for Rocky River and then transferred out of state before going to Tennessee. Number 8 played for Rocky River.
Okay, and who does he play for?
Tennessee.
Okay, right. Yeah. Did he?
Mm-hmm. Rocky River, and then out of state for a little bit. So he didn't finish it. Wofford has Kamar Holmes, Lake Norman Christian, and then out of state for a little bit. So there's a lot of guys on the men's roster to take a look at from the Charlotte perspective, and then the women's as well too. You look at the women's real quick. You've got UNC Greensboro has Kennedy Simpson out of Mallard Creek. You've got Kentucky has number 10 Desire Lawrence from Mallard Creek as well.
Okay.
Arkansas State has Kiana Morgan from Chambers. You've got Alabama has Jessica Timmons, who played at North Meck and at Independence.
Wow.
Of course, North Carolina has Blanca Thomas from Charlotte Catholic, who we spoke to last year. Has a huge, collegiate family. Duke has Regan Richardson from Cannon. You go down a little bit more here. We've got William and Mary, who just snuck in to play High Point.
First time.
Yeah, to play High Point women.
Yeah.
For who High Point women got in for the second time in 2 years. Well, they're only 2 times. William and Mary has Cassidy Geddes from Newton Conover. Ohio State has Ella Hobbs from J.M. Robinson and Signe Henry from Chambers, and then out of state for a little bit. And then Michigan has Mila Holloway from Covenant Day, and then Chambers, and then out of state as well. So there's a lot of local talent to pay attention to in these 2 tournaments. So it should be a lot of fun to watch. If you don't have a team you're rooting for and you just want to root for players in the area, you can throw a dart in the dark, and you're going to hit a North Meck grad more than likely, or a Mallard Creek grad on either side of the ball. A lot of cool things to look at.
No, absolutely. And real quick, back to New Hanover, North Meck.
Mm-hmm.
North Meck was at the line, up 3.
Yeah.
Missed the free throw.
Yeah.
New Hanover had a shot. They had a great look as time expired, but like I said, didn't drop. And the cool part, talking to a lot of the coaches, both on the winning side and losing side, is how many of them kind of just gave kudos to the state of Carolina.
Yeah.
And the high school talent.
Yeah.
And even more so in the Queen City and the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but sitting there watching them, I was impressed. I just the ball skills, the movement, the way they're coached, the way they conducted themselves. It was a really just it was cool watching the state championships play out, both the semis and the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the men, you almost you have the 1A champs, 3A. You have the 1A champs, the 4A champs. And the girls, you have the 4A champs, but you had a chance there in the 1A as well, or in the 3A as well. The West region, really runs a lot of it runs through the West. Whether it's Charlotte, Mecklenburg area, outer counties, the metro area. They call it the Hoop State for a reason. It'll be really interesting to see what they do next year.
That was the interesting part about a lot of the conversations.
I mean, because then you have it's going to basically have to be either 4 different venues or 2 weeks of championship basketball. If you have the semifinals out of location, again, you could alleviate a little bit of it by having the semifinals be played at local arenas, and playing at the home court advantage, and then just have the state championships be played, because you're going to have, like we talked about, we asked that question, and yes, the 8, other sports are all going to have 8A.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to talk about, there's some speculation out there that, because there's a lot of schools that don't field teams in every sport.
Right.
They don't field football teams. Right. They don't field basketball teams. They don't have the numbers for it or the ability for it. So there's possibilities that you might not be able to fill a bracket with just a 1A. You might not be able to get 32 basketball teams in 1A. So do you do a dual class championship and do 2A schools versus 1A schools, and then you're a state championship of the 2A 1A?
Right.
For football, they should probably be fine to each have their own class. But for baseball, soccer,
tennis,
for these, for a lot of these other sports, what do you do there? And then even for just location wise, where do you play them all? Where do you do it all? Even for football, it's going to be a question.
It was cool seeing the semis and the finals all being played at Wake.
Yeah.
At Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial. It was cool, but I can see how if you're living in the Queen City or wherever, you got to travel up and back, up and back, up and back.
And not only that, on a school day too.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
A 2:00 game on a school day, and it's an hour and a half drive. You got to get out of school early and go up there.
There was, I can't remember what school it was, but I bet you they had 200 students, and it was Friday. And I'm like,
not a single one of you in class.
I'm like, did you guys get out of
It
class?
would have probably that would have been the Indy or the Chambers North Met game. Would it not have been? If that was they were the noon game.
It might have been whoever was.
I think they were the 2:00. Yeah, whatever game they were. They were the early.
I can't
game.
remember, but yeah, it was a ton of kids, and I'm like, it might have been Wakefield.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of kids, and the AD was there, and I'm like, how do these kids get here? And he's like, they all called in sick.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Hunter Huss wanted to bring a bus up for their semifinal game. They weren't able to do that. I know Corvian wanted to bring a bus up too for their first, their semifinal game. And I mean, it's a big event, and you want. I
liked it, but I get the idea of playing the regionals at the schools. I mean, at the semifinals, taking it all the way through the semis. But it was kind of cool to have that kind of tournament feel.
Yeah,
that kind of Final Four feel.
It celebrates the teams that get into the semifinals, into the Final Four.
Right.
So it definitely allows for you to have that, and you could say for football, you could maybe do it too. It's a bit different in terms of venue. And of course, you still have it. I mean, it's operating in the same week as the ACC tournament, which is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think in talking to a couple people from the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, I think there's some talk of going, okay, do you play it at, a Duke, or North Carolina, and you have Carmichael, and
I mean those gyms are unoccupied when
right, exactly. If you've got two gyms, but then I don't know. For us, are you playing a guys game and a girls game both at noon?
Yeah.
And you take away from
the
media, where do we go?
Yeah.
How do we handle it?
Yeah.
And we don't want to see that happen. So they're in a little bit of a bind, but yeah, if you're going to do 8 games,
you're going to have 8 state
championships, which means you're going to have
16 semifinals.
16 semifinals.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And
I mean, that's 32 teams in itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, your round of 32
is your
semifinal,
right.
To be honest. And that's, that was what we thought that the reclassification was going to do, was allow for less teams in the postseason,
right.
Make it a bit more succinct, but then you still kept the 32 team. It's going to be from 64 now to 32.
Right.
So, and then for 8A, and I think it's going to be 56. I think is what they were saying for football.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So you're still allowing for it. So it's definitely going to be interesting. They're reclassifying now. They're renaming some of the conferences. And teams are introducing their non-conference schedules for football. And then all the while, like baseball still just going on, trying to get their last season of. And it's also interesting. It was cool to see some of like Hunter Huss and North Lincoln. Or Hunter Huss and Ashbrook playing, in the quarterfinals.
Right.
That's the last time those two teams were supposedly going to be in that conference, And now they're pretty much in the exact same conference. But that was a cool storyline throughout some of this football year. And then in basketball and baseball, like this is the last year. You're going to be the last 4A champion.
Right.
For at least the next 4 years, unless if they decide to reclassify and go back down to 4 in 2 years. You get to hang your 4A double banner, your 4 double A banner.
Yeah.
Your West Charlotte it's the last year they're in the 4A, now they're in the 8A.
Right.
I mean 3 and now they're in 8A. So that's kind of cool to see the different banners, see the different ways that kind of changed things.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be interesting whenever they have the playoff, the postseason next year. I think inevitably you're going to have to do local semifinal games, and it worked for the quarterfinals. I mean, Lake Norman packed their gym for their game. Chambers' gym was packed, or North Mex gym was packed for for their game against Watauga, and Watauga, God bless them, filled out both Lake Norman's girls' stadium and North Mex guys' stadium with those games, an hour apart, and I didn't see a whole lot of overlap. And they had student sections at both, but Watauga traveled up for those games. And teams will travel, I think, for those if you make the semifinals at home. I think it's the best way you can do it, because then, like you said, I mean, you're going to have, they did this year. It was 4 days, 4 games. No.
Yeah.
4 games a day?
Yeah. Because on Friday and Saturday there were 8 games altogether.
Between the 2 days.
Between Fridays, yes.
Yeah, and I believe the same thing. I think
Wednesday,
it was
Thursday, right?
Believe it, or was it Monday, Tuesday? No.
Well,
Monday, Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday. So
Yeah.
it was 4 games between Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Yeah.
There's 5 days, 4 games, and that's just with 4 classes.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do?
So
It's got to be over 2 weeks.
or you just do it.
Or you do
because
the two
that
gyms.
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday were all semifinal matchups. And Thursday was all
Thursday,
semifinal
right.
matchups. Friday and Saturday. So I'm sorry, it was 4 games a day for 6 days, and that's with 4 classes of athletics.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
but
12
3
to like 12.
12, 2,
2,
6, and 8.
Yeah.
So you have, or 2, 4, 6, and 8, I think is what. No, it was
No,
12.
it was noon. It was
12, 2,
noon.
6, and 8.
Well, noon, 2:30.
Yeah, so 3 of those days were semifinal, or 4 of those days were semifinal days.
Yeah.
And then your Friday,
days of finals,
Saturday
yep.
was finals. So you could take out, because then if you have 8 classes, you're either going to have 8 games a day,
Yeah, you got to figure that out.
and then you have you have like 8 semifinals one day, 8 semifinals the next, then, and then you have
You'd
to
have to start at like 10 a.m.
or you'd have to do 2 gyms, which
Yeah.
you could do if you did like
You did
from
Duke or Carolina
because
or
that's what they
something.
did this year. I mean, for football, they had 1 game on Friday night.
Right.
That was your 4A,
And then they had the
and then you had
3.
1A, 2A, 3A all on Saturday
But
at
at 2
different
different- yeah,
stadiums.
right,
You had
right.
and you spaced it out to where I had to go. I was done. We had 3 games in that block of 3: West Charlotte, Corvian, Monroe.
Yeah.
And so I was at West Charlotte for the whole game. Then Corvian started right after, and then the Monroe game was at the end at Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
So I stayed. I got to the end of the Corvian game and got there halfway through the Monroe game.
Right.
And so if you were to do it, Chapel Hill to Duke is about 30 minutes, or Chapel Hill to NC State is about 30 minutes. So if you even wanted to do the whole triangle and do Chapel Hill, Duke, and NC State for
Right.
basketball, and then you have the ability to have 2 odd games and a third, in one of the 3 stadiums.
It's going to take a lot.
It is.
But they'll figure it out. And everybody needs to be patient with them.
Yeah, because if you thought the bracket compilation was long this year,
Wait.
just wait till they have to go about making 8 brackets
Right.
and trying to figure out, and maybe because of the 8, they go away a bit from RPI a little bit,
I think
and they
they
go
would.
back to just, they've had their ranking system, their numbers based system that they used to have back when it was AA, when RPI wasn't as big of a thing and maybe they go away from that a little bit and they, or go to a committee. Or
That's
go
what
to
I
a
think.
committee.
I wonder if they go to committee. Because then you're going to end up with, like, you take football and you look at that Independence, Butler, West Charlotte. I mean, that's a gauntlet.
And it's
And now, they're going to be. You could have a 500 team winning that conference.
Well, and especially the way we talked about it, in last year's with the because that was the other thing is that they thought that the 8 classes was going to allow for single classification conferences.
Right.
Clearly, that wasn't the case, and there's
Right.
very few single class conferences. Especially, there's not a single one in Charlotte Mecklenburg.
yeah,
And so when you had it last year, then you had your 8A and your or your 3A, 2A. You said, okay, is there going to be, there was a 2A team that would automatically get a bid,
Right.
and then the 3A section would only get 1 bid.
Right.
So now are you going to have in that in that Indy Butler Chambers conference where you have 4 8A and 4 7A, or only 1 of 8 and 1 of 7 going to get in, and that means
Yeah.
you only have Indy and then not Butler or any
right.
of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be.
And basketball is going to be the same way. So there's a committee might have to be made.
That's what
You
I'm
had a reclassification committee, so you could argue to try to figure out how you're going to do that. Because then then you're getting scared about what happened in South Carolina.
I know.
And saying they just dug up their whole athletic association and said we're going to redo this as a different way now.
Right.
And so now the ACHSL is gone.
Right.
And so is that you don't want that as the
You don't want that,
NCHSAA.
No.
But it'll be interesting to see a lot of good sports coming up, and then of course trying to get a handle on baseball.
Yeah, we got baseball, softball. What do we have? Soccer, tennis,
Yep.
track and field, all kinds of stuff. We'll try to keep you up to date on that as best we can.
Yep.
So, basketball is done, except for high school wise. Enjoy March Madness.
Yep.
Fill out those brackets. Thanks for joining the podcast. Remember to check us out wherever you listen or watch your podcasts. Subscribe, like, comment. We'd love to hear from you. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we will talk to you next week right here on Game On.